The most optimistic time in any franchise's build is year 2 of the rookie quarterback contract. Year 2 is when young, exciting quarterbacks catapult themselves into MVP contention and your team starts to compete for championships. That's at least what you tell yourself if you find yourself in that scenario, but how real is that for the top 3 quarterbacks from last year's draft? What's the outlook for these second-year signal callers? I'll do my best to answer all those questions, and I want to start with the first overall pick from last year. Cam Ward's rookie season was uneven, to say the least, so much so that the head coach Brian Callahan got fired 3 weeks into the season. His uninspiring menu of straight dropbacks from the gun, along with an underperforming offensive line, led to some truly horrendous offensive football, and it got him canned quite early in the year, as I said. That, combined with the fact that rookies Alec Ayomanor and Chimere Dike were his 2 main wide receivers, you can see that Cam Ward's situation was a little bit rotten from the beginning. However, I don't want to diminish Cam Ward's role in all of this the way that a lot of people like to do. The efficiency metrics are terrible. I mean, they're bad for all 3 rookie quarterbacks to a certain extent, but for Cam Ward, the numbers are not good at all. He also really struggled with sacks and fumbles. His pressure to sack rate, again, like the other 2 quarterbacks, was bad, but he had the 4th worst mark in the NFL at 23.5%, and his 11 fumbles were tied for the most in the entire league. Now, I think he looks very calm and slippery as he maneuvers around the pocket, but he also is very loose with the football in those instances, and a lot of times he just hangs on to the ball too long, and he tries to make a play when he's got a rusher screaming down his back. On a more positive note, though, I don't think this carelessness that I'm describing remains as a passer. By that, I mean, I don't think he has a problem putting the ball in harm's way through the air. Sure, he's aggressive at times, but that's nothing out of the ordinary for a rookie trying to figure out what he can and can't get away with at the NFL level. And yeah, he threw the ball across his body a lot, but every time he did it, it worked. Seriously, Cam Ward consistently completed passes to the left side of the field while rolling out to his right. It's how he secured his first career touchdown pass, and it's such a pattern that I have no choice but to accept the fact that he knows what he's doing in these moments, and I can't call that reckless by any means. Also, I'm glad he's trying to figure out what throws he can and cannot make at the NFL level, because I think that his best throws are these somewhat risky tight window seam balls that his receivers routinely dropped all season. This one comes from the first game of Cam Ward's career. The Broncos have 6 men on the line of scrimmage, and they're going to drop out into a cover 3 cloud call. Now, on the boundary side of this play, you have Jahdae Barron in his first career game dropping into the hooked curl area, and they're going to high-low him specifically with a little bow concept between Ridley and Chigakonkwo. And even though Ridley trips up on Talanoa Hufanga coming out of his break, he gets wide open in the middle of the field because Jahdae Barron didn't get enough depth once he saw Chigakonkwo breaking out towards the sideline, and Cam Ward is ready to throw this on time. Now, like I said, Calvin Ridley tripped up a little bit, but this ball hits him right in the hands and drop. Hopefully Carnell Tate can hang on to some of these for him. I also think it's worth mentioning that Cam got better as the season went on, both statistically and on film, and I think the main reason for that is that he really cut down on the bad sacks, and that let his natural talent shine through much more. His pressure to sack rate sat at 28.2% before the bye, but in games after the bye week, that number was only 16.7%. So as I mentioned, anyone can tell that Cam Ward wasn't really set up to succeed, but the stats are really bad, and you can't just ignore that. It was, however, encouraging to see him grow as things progressed last year, and I do think he'll be better set up to succeed under Brian Daboll. Daboll will get him on the move more, things like these rollouts that I thought Ward threw really well last year, and he also does a good job of getting his quarterback's eyes to the right spot from the snap of the ball, something I noticed while watching the next quarterback that we're here to talk about, and that's Jackson Dart. When watching Dart's film early on, you can immediately see how badly Daboll wanted him to succeed. I mean, obviously, and we also saw him illegally go into the blue tent while Dart was being evaluated for a concussion. Daboll saw him as the savior for his job, which ultimately failed. But on the field, we saw Dart's eyes going to the right place to start most plays, and many where he was able to access his first read or get on the move and cut the field in half. He also threw a lot of quick game, and he did so very effectively, which makes sense considering the RPO and quick game heavy offense he ran at Ole Miss. Early on in Dart's film, he was very much a one read and go quarterback, and by that I mean if his first read wasn't open, he immediately went into creation mode. And there's a play against the Eagles that just perfectly encapsulates the way he was playing when he first got in. On this play, the Giants are in quads, and they run a creative little flood concept out of it where Theo Johnson actually crosses Wan'Dale Robinson on the little corner route here. And what that does is it puts Andrew Makuba and Cooper DeJean in conflict, and they end up tripping on each other's feet. And Wan'Dale Robinson gets wide open on this deep out or deep corner route. Except Jackson Dart doesn't pull the trigger because he saw a flash of color in front of his face, stepped up in the pocket, and rather than resetting, he has gone into creation mode way too early in the down, even though he very clearly could throw this wide open corner route to Wan'Dale Robinson. But now that he's in creation mode, he makes a couple guys miss, gets out to the sideline, and he finds Wan'Dale Robinson anyways, and it turns into a touchdown. Now, it wasn't perfect by any means. Dart ran himself into a ton of pressure. PFF charted him as the quarterback with the highest rate of pressures responsible for at 39.1%. This means that, according to PFF, 39.1% of his pressures were caused by himself. That being said, Dart was a very effective scrambler and designed runner. He generated 38.12 rush EPA, which was second amongst quarterbacks last season. So while his play style could be considered a little bit erratic at times, he found some real success with it. One of the reasons for this is he avoided putting the ball in harm's way and actually did a really good job of identifying blitzes and exotic pressures, especially for a first-year quarterback who did not come from a pro system. He also really started to round out his game as he got more reps. In the San Francisco and Chicago games specifically, you can see him starting to progress to the backside of concepts from within the pocket and deliver throws to his third or fourth read calmly and on time. And then he got concussed, and Brian Daboll got fired, and the rest of the season was a bit of a mess for everyone involved. And it was really hard to get a read on Jackson Dart's individual performances towards the end of the year. Now, it certainly does not help when your best and most reliable weapons are Wan'Dale Robinson and Theo Johnson. No disrespect to those guys. But you would think with some of those strides that he made in the realm of progressing through his reads last year, and the fact that he hopefully gets Malik Neighbors back this season, you'd think the arrow would just be pointed up. But I have some concerns about the fact that he seems hellbent on sticking his head into defenders multiple times every single game, and the fact that his offensive coordinator is now Matt Nagy. It has been almost a decade since we've seen Matt Nagy fail as the Bears head coach, so maybe things have changed. But given the staleness of the Chiefs' offense over the past few years and their very obvious wishes for him to move on at the end of his contract this year, I don't think anything should make us feel good about the idea that this is somehow an upgrade in offensive infrastructure. Though we'll see. Things like this can be hard to predict, and I have been wrong about them many times before. One quarterback who will not have a new play caller next season is Saints quarterback Tyler Shuck, who I did not expect to be talking about in this capacity when they took him in the second round last year. However, he clearly gave that offense a lift. Now, was it a good offense? No, not really. Was it kind of exciting? Yeah, absolutely. There was very real promise showed by him and this passing game after he took over for Spencer Rattler, and this comes despite the fact that his main receiving core was either traded or injured by the end of the season. So let's just talk about who he actually is as a player. We knew about his arm coming out of college, and it's a good one. Not only is it strong and capable of driving the ball all over the field, but it's also flexible. Shuck's able to bend the ball around defenders pretty effectively by quickly dropping his arm slot when need be, and I will say that he's better at driving the ball on a line rather than layering it over defenders, which limits some of the throws that he's actually capable of, but plenty of quarterbacks have this trait and have been successful regardless. The areas where Shuck struggles are in the more advanced parts of the game, and all I mean by that is he can get fooled. Especially in the Miami and Atlanta games early on, late rotations and disguised coverages got to him and forced him into some turnover-worthy throws. Same deal with the Rams game. This example of him getting tricked is from the Miami game. Now, the defensive structure here is very similar to the one that I showed you on the Cam Ward clip earlier, where you have a cloud corner to the field side. And this is actually quarter half, I think, not cover 3 cloud, but that doesn't really matter for this play. What does matter is that there's a deep safety and a cloud corner, and the Saints have on a little quick game concept where there's a mandatory outside release go ball and then an out route underneath it. Tyler Shuck takes the snap and has determined that this out route is going to be open because he believes that this corner is carrying the go ball, but he's not. He tricked him. He kept his eyes in the backfield, gets into his position and jumps this out route and takes it not all the way back, but he gets a nice long return on this interception. The only reason I show this is just to show you that, like any other rookie quarterback, despite the fact that he's older, Tyler Shuck can get tricked by NFL defenses, and especially so in his first few starts. However, as the season progressed, like many others, Shuck got more comfortable, and for all the arm talent that he has, I thought he did a really good job of taking what the defense was giving him in checkdowns. I also thought he did a really good job of throwing quick game. He was confident, and he trusted his instincts and the zip that he puts on the ball to carry him. He's also very comfortable in tight pockets, but that actually contributes to my biggest concern with him. Tyler Shuck takes a lot of sacks. I mean, all three of these guys had high pressure to sack rates, but his was the second highest in the entire league at 25%. It's not that he gets spooked by pressure or runs himself into it. He just holds on to the ball till the last second and really lets the pocket collapse around him without getting rid of the ball. Also, he doesn't have the twitchiness of Cam Ward or Jackson Dart to escape these muddy pockets, so when he steps up and looks to scramble, he usually gets caught. As I mentioned, I'm very encouraged by the continuity he has with Kellen Moore going into year 2, something I cannot say for the other two quarterbacks that we talked about today. The Saints also added weapons to a group that already featured Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson, along with a very good offensive line. The situation that he finds himself in is clearly the best of the three, and I think that's enough of a reason, combined with the way that he played, to feel pretty safe about him going into year 2. But we never truly know. Dart and Ward are a little bit more complicated. I think it's important to note that Jackson Dart produced better than the other two from an efficiency standpoint, and even though a lot of that is due to his production as a runner, it's a point that bears repeating when we're considering who is the best of these three quarterbacks today. My biggest concerns with him are based around injuries and his play caller. Part of me wonders if his play style is sustainable, but we've seen him produce with it, and we also saw signs of growth in his overall game as the season went along. Now, Cam Ward is a bit of a projection because he was statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the league last season, but I feel a little bit better about his current environment and health than Jackson Dart. I know Cam Ward had a shoulder injury at the end of last season, but I'm a little bit more comfortable with him overall just because he's not constantly putting his head in harm's way the way that Dart is. Also, I mentioned it earlier, but I really do like his fit with Dable from both a schematic perspective and a personality perspective. I think Dable is an emotional and demanding coach, which doesn't work for everyone, but Cam Ward strikes me as a quarterback who takes well to that kind of coaching. Though ultimately we will see. We won't know until we know. But there are reasons to be optimistic about all three of these guys, even if the range of outcomes is probably wider for Cam Ward and Jackson Dart than it is for Tyler Shuck. But I'll revisit this once we see how these sophomore performances play out, and until next time,